Distributed node Alpha 7's gas swirled in golden patterns. Nebula collective analysis confirms. Cooperation increases survival. Probability by 847% compared to continued conflict. We accept stellar radiation harvesting rights and planetary protection responsibilities. Jake felt amazed at how quickly everything had changed. So you are all agreeing to share the Kepler 442 system? More than that, the Hive Queen said. We are agreeing to defend it together. The pirate attack showed us that our individual strength means nothing if we do not coordinate with our allies. Crystal Singer Quell added, we propose a formal alliance for the defense and development of Kepler 442. Each species will contribute their greatest strengths to the common good. Distributed node Alpha 7 calculated rapidly. Preliminary analysis suggests the Kepler Cooperative Defense Alliance could become the most secure and prosperous region in the galaxy within 10 years. Amy leaned over to Jake. Captain, they are not just ending the war. They are creating something completely new. Over the following weeks, Jake watched the impossible become reality. The three species that had been fighting for 20 years worked together to establish the Kepler 442 Cooperative. Zephyrian warriors became the system's guardians, protecting everyone's interests with the same fierce loyalty they had once shown only to their own hive. Vorthic crystal technology created communication and defense networks that made the system nearly impregnable. The Nebula Collective used their enhanced intelligence to coordinate trade, resource management, and scientific research that benefited all three species. Most importantly, each species got more than they had originally wanted. The Zephyrians did not just get breeding worlds for their larvae. They got the honor of being the galaxy's most respected peacekeepers. The Vorthics did not just get to protect their ancestors' crystal caverns. They got to create new crystal wonders that surpassed anything in their history. The Nebula Collective did not just get stellar radiation for their intelligence. They got to use that intelligence to solve problems that no single species could handle alone. 6 months later, Jake received a message from Admiral Barnes. She appeared as a hologram on the bridge of the Endeavor, and she was smiling. Captain Miller, she said, I have remarkable news. 17 different galactic conflicts have requested human mediation. The Kepler Cooperative has become a model that the entire galaxy wants to copy. Amy looked up from her research station. Admiral, how did word spread so quickly? Admiral Barnes laughed. Because the results speak for themselves. The Kepler 442 system has gone from being the most dangerous war zone in the Crimson Sector to being the most prosperous and secure region in the galaxy. Trade routes that used to avoid the area now go there specifically. 3 other species have asked to join. The Cooperative. Nick shook his head in amazement. So the Deathworlders from Earth are now the galaxy's peacemakers? It makes sense when you think about it, Jake said. Most galactic species evolved on safe, peaceful worlds. They never had to learn how to turn enemies into allies because they never faced the kind of threats that make cooperation necessary for survival. Amy nodded. Earth taught humans that the universe is dangerous, but it also taught us that working together makes everyone stronger. Other species had to learn that lesson the hard way. Admiral Barnes continued her message. Captain, Earth Command is creating a new division called the Diplomatic Corps. We want you to lead the first team of human peacemakers. Your mission will be to travel the galaxy and help other species learn what the Kepler Cooperative has learned. Jake looked out at the stars. What do you think, teen? Ready to show the galaxy what Deathworlders can do when they put their minds to peace instead of war? Sam laughed. Captain, after what we accomplished here, I think we can handle anything the galaxy throws at us. As the Endeavor prepared to leave Harmony Point for their next mission, Jake reflected on what they had learned. The galaxy was full of species that were smarter than humans, stronger than humans, and more technologically advanced than humans. But humans had something that many of them lacked: the experience of surviving in a universe that constantly tried to kill them. That experience had taught humans the most important lesson of all. In a dangerous universe, the choice is not between fighting and peace. The choice is between fighting alone and fighting together. And when you fight together, sometimes the best victory is when everybody wins. The three species in the Kepler 442 system had spent 20 years trying to destroy each other. Now they were working together to build something better than any of them could have created alone. They had learned what humans discovered long ago: the strongest warriors are not those who defeat their enemies, but those who turn their enemies into friends. And sometimes it takes Deathworlders to show the galaxy how to find peace where others found only war. Jake smiled as the Endeavor jumped to hyperspace, heading toward their next impossible diplomatic mission. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were not just survivors. They were teachers, and their greatest lesson was that even the deadliest worlds could produce the greatest peacemakers. In the distance behind them, the Kepler 442 system shone like a beacon of hope in the darkness of space. Three former enemies now stood guard together, protecting not just their own people, but the dream that peace was possible anywhere in the galaxy, as long as someone was brave enough to try a different way of thinking. The Deathworlders had found peace where others found war, and now they were going to teach the rest of the galaxy how to do the same. Others safer. Hive Queen Zacht H was quiet for a long time. Her clicking became slower and more thoughtful. Human Miller, this plan could work in theory, but implementation requires actions that seem impossible after 20 years of war. No, Jake said. That is why we are going to start with something small. Something that proves the idea works before asking anyone to risk everything. Sam brought up a new display showing recent pirate attacks in the Crimson Sector. 3 weeks ago, pirates attacked supply convoys belonging to all three of your species. Each of you fought them separately and suffered losses. What if you had fought them together? Distributed Node Alpha 7 calculated quickly. Combined force effectiveness would increase by 340%. Casualty reduction probability approaches 89%. Exactly, Jake said. We propose a test. The next time pirates or raiders threaten any of your species in this sector, all three species work together to stop them. Just once, see what happens. When the greatest warriors, the most advanced technology, and the highest intelligence in the sector combine forces. Amy added, if it works, you prove that cooperation makes everyone stronger. If it fails, you have lost nothing but a few ships that you were going to lose anyway fighting alone. The three aliens looked at each other for the first time during the peace talks. For 20 years, they had refused to even consider working together. Now they were thinking about it. Crystal-Singer Quell spoke first. The honor of the Vortex could accept a temporary alliance against common enemies. Hive Queen Zaith's arms moved in new patterns. The Zephyrian Hive could permit cooperative military action for strategic evaluation purposes. Distributed Node Alpha 7's gas swirled in brighter colors. Probability analysis supports limited cooperation trial. Risk-benefit calculations favor experimental collaboration. Jake felt hope rising in his chest. Then we have an agreement for the test phase? All three aliens made sounds of agreement in their own languages. Good, Jake said, because our sensors had detected a large pirate fleet heading toward this sector. They will be here in 6 hours. This is your chance to see what Deathworlders learned about turning enemies into allies. The meeting room became very quiet. After 20 years of war, the three species were about to try something completely new. They were about to discover what humans had learned long ago. Sometimes the best way to defeat your enemies is to turn them into friends. 6 hours later, Jake stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, watching something that had never happened before in the Crimson Sector. 3 enemy fleets were working together. The Zephyrian warships looked like giant metal insects with weapons sticking out from every surface. The Vorthic vessels were beautiful crystal ships that glowed with inner light and sang as they moved through space. The Nebula Collective ships were strange clouds of gas held together by energy fields, flowing like liquid through the darkness. For 20 years, these ships had been trying to destroy each other. Now they were flying in formation toward a common enemy. "Captain," Amy said from her station, "I am reading 47 pirate ships approaching the system. That is the largest pirate fleet ever seen in this sector." Nick looked worried. "Captain, even with all 3 species working together, those are bad odds." Jake smiled. "Nick, you are thinking like the pirates are. You are counting ships and weapons. But humans learned something important about fighting together. When different groups combine their strengths, the total power is much greater than the sum of the parts." On the main screen, Jake could see the 3 alien fleets spreading out in a formation that no single species could have created. The Zephyrians took the front position with their heavy weapons and thick armor. The Vorthics positioned their crystal ships to create a communication network that linked all 3 fleets. The Nebula Collective spread their gas ships throughout, the formation to provide intelligence and early warning. Sam was monitoring the communications between the 3 species. "Captain, they are actually talking to each other. The Vorthic crystal technology is letting all 3 species share information instantly. The Zephyrians can see what the Nebula Collective sees, and the Collective can use Zephyrian targeting data." "Amazing," Amy said. "They are becoming like a single organism with 3 different types of cells, each doing what it does best." The pirate fleet appeared on their sensors. It was an ugly collection of stolen ships and makeshift weapons. The pirates had been successful for years because they attacked individual species that could not coordinate their defenses, but they had never faced anything like this. "Distributed Node Alpha 7s. Voice came over the communication system. Pirate. Fleet composition analyzed. Optimal attack vectors calculated. Sharing data with all allied units." Crystal Singer Quell's musical tones followed. "Crystal network active. All ships linked for maximum coordination. Honor demands we protect our allies as we protect ourselves." Have Queen Zake's clicking came last. "Zephyrian warriors ready. We fight not just for our hive, but for the survival of all allies. Victory is the only acceptable outcome." Jake felt proud of what he was seeing. 3 species that had been killing each other for 20 years were now willing to die for each other. The battle began differently than any space battle in galactic history. Instead of each species fighting its own separate engagement, the 3 fleets moved like a single weapon with 3 parts. The Nebula Collective ships flowed around the pirate fleet like intelligent smoke, confusing their sensors and blocking their escape routes. The Vorthic crystal ships created a communication network that let every allied ship know exactly where every enemy ship was at all times. The Zephyrian warships struck with perfect coordination, hitting the pirates from multiple directions at once. The pirates had expected to fight 3 separate enemies. Instead, they faced one enemy with the intelligence of the Nebula Collective, the technology of the Vorthics, and the warrior skills of the Zephyrians. The battle lasted only 30 minutes. Not a single allied ship was destroyed, and only a few were damaged. The pirate fleet was completely defeated. Some pirate ships were destroyed, others were captured, and the rest fled the sector. As the 3 allied fleets regrouped after the battle, something even more amazing happened. The ships that had been enemies that morning were now flying side by side, their crews talking and even laughing together over the communication channels. "Captain," Amy said with wonder in her voice, "listen to this." She put the alien communications On the bridge speakers, Jake could hear Zephyrian warriors sharing battle stories with Vorthic crystal singers. Nebula collective nodes were calculating how much more effective they had been working together than fighting separately. Most surprising of all, they were making plans for the next time they might need to work together. 3 days later, representatives from all 3 species met again at Harmony Point. But this meeting was very different from the first one. Aliens were not sitting as far apart from each other. They were talking instead of just making demands. Human Captain Miller, Hive Queen Zoth said, "The Zephyrian Hive has reconsidered our position regarding Kepler 442. We propose accepting the territorial division you suggested." Crystal Singer Quell's music was bright and happy. The Vorthak Empire agrees. "We have seen the honor that comes from protecting allies instead of destroying enemies. We will accept the crystal worlds and asteroid belts as our sacred domain." The next morning, Jake and his team returned to the meeting room at Harmony Point. The 3 alien representatives were already waiting. Jake could feel the tension in the air. After 20 years of war, none of them really believed peace was possible. Hive Queen Zakh's 6 arms moved restlessly. Crystal Singer Quell's body made soft, sad music. Distributed Node Alpha 7's gas swirled in slow, dark patterns. They all looked tired, like soldiers who had been fighting too long. "Human Captain Miller," the Hive Queen said, "have you found a solution to our impossible problem?" Jake stood in front of the 3 aliens. "Before I answer that, I want to tell you a story about my home planet Earth." Crystal Singer Quell's music became sharper. "We did not come here for stories, human. We came for solutions." "This story is the solution," Jake said calmly. "Please, let me explain." Amy activated a display screen that showed pictures of Earth. The aliens saw a blue and green planet covered with clouds. "This is Earth," Jake said. "Other galactic species call it a death world because it is so dangerous. Earth has ice ages that freeze the entire planet. It has volcanoes that can darken the sky for years. It has earthquakes, hurricanes, diseases, and asteroid impacts. Most of the animals on Earth are predators that hunt and kill other animals to survive." Distributed Node Alpha 7's gas brightened with interest. "Environmental hostility index is indeed extreme. How did your species achieve civilization under such conditions?" "That is the important part," Jake said. "Humans survived not by being the strongest or the smartest, but by learning to work together, even with enemies." Jake nodded to Sam, who changed the display to show pictures of human history. "This is the story of World War II," Jake said. "It was the most terrible war in human history. More than 60 million humans died. Countries that had been friends for centuries became deadly enemies. The fighting covered the entire planet. The aliens watched scenes of battles, destroyed cities, and refugees fleeing their homes. Humans developed weapons that could destroy entire cities with a single bomb." Jake continued. "We created machines of war that could kill thousands of people in minutes. The war was so terrible that many thought human civilization would end." Hive Queen Zakh's clicking became faster. "This story proves humans are violent Deathworlders. How does this help us make peace?" Jake smiled. "Because of what happened after the war ended." "Sam, show them the next pictures." The display changed to show something amazing. The same countries that had been destroying each other were now working together. Former enemies were building new cities, sharing technology, and creating alliances. Within 20 years of the most devastating war in human history, Jake said, the enemies had become allies. America and Japan, countries that had dropped atomic bombs on each other, became close friends. Germany, which had tried to conquer all of Europe, became a leader in European cooperation. Crystal Singer Quell's music became curious. "How is this?" Possible? How do you forget such hatred? Amy stepped forward. They did not forget the hatred. They learned something more important than hatred. They learned that working together made everyone safer and stronger than fighting alone. Jake nodded to Nick, who changed the display again. Now it showed the International Space Station, a huge structure floating in space around Earth. This is the International Space Station, Jake said. It was built by countries that used to be enemies. Russians and Americans, who once pointed nuclear weapons at each other, now live and work together in space. They trust each other with their lives every day. Distributed node Alpha 7 calculated rapidly. Probability of such cooperation after existential. Conflict should be minimal. What variable did we fail to consider? Fear, Jake said simply. Humans learn that fear makes you do stupid things. When you are afraid, you think the only way to be safe is to destroy your enemies. But Earth taught us that the universe is full of dangers much bigger than any enemy you might have. Sam changed the display to show pictures of natural disasters. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, and asteroid impacts. When a tsunami destroys your cities, it does not care what country you are from, Jake said. When a disease spreads across the planet, it does not care about your politics. When an asteroid heads toward Earth, it threatens everyone equally. Amy picked up the explanation. Humans learned that we could spend all our energy fighting each other, or we could work together to face the real threats that could destroy everyone. Jake looked directly at each alien representative. The Crimson Sector has the same kind of threats. Pirates, raiders, solar storms, and dark matter clouds threaten all of your species equally. While you fight each other over Kepler 442, you are all vulnerable to these real dangers. Hive Queen Zake's arms stopped moving. Continue, human. Jake activated a new display showing the Kepler 442 star system. We studied your star system carefully. It is big enough for all three of your species to get what you need. But more importantly, your three species have exactly the skills needed to make the entire system safe and prosperous. Explain, Crystal Singer Quell said, his music becoming more interested. The Ephirians are the greatest warriors in this sector, Jake said. Your military skills could protect the entire system from pirates and raiders. The Vortex have crystal, technology that could create the most advanced communication and defense networks ever built. The Nebula Collective has intelligence and processing power that could predict threats and coordinate responses. Sam added, separately, each of your species struggles with problems the others could easily solve. Together, you would be nearly invincible. Distributed node Alpha 7's gas swirled faster. Theoretical analysis suggests significant strategic advantages. However, cooperation requires trust. Trust probability between hostile entities remains near zero. Jake laughed, which surprised all three aliens. You do not need trust to start cooperation. You just need mutual benefit. Trust comes later, after. You see that working together makes everyone better off. Amy brought up a detailed plan on the display. Here is what we propose. The Kepler 442 system, it's divided based on what each species actually needs, not what they think they want. The plan showed the inner two planets colored green for the Zephyrians. These high-gravity worlds are perfect for Zephyrian larvae development. No other species in this sector needs high-gravity planets. The outer planet and asteroid belts were colored blue for the Vortex. These low-gravity areas are ideal for crystal growth and religious structures. The unique mineral formations here could make Vortex crystal technology more powerful than ever before. The star itself was colored silver for the Nebula Collective. The stellar radiation can be harvested without interfering with planetary activities. In fact, the energy collection systems could provide power for the entire system. Crystal Singer. Quell made sounds like wind chimes in a storm. This plan requires trusting ancient enemies with our most precious resources. No, Jake said firmly. This plan requires each species to protect their own interests by protecting everyone's interests. If pirates attack the Zephyrian planets, the Vorthix and Nebula Collective lose their guardians. If raiders destroy Vorthic crystal arrays, everyone loses communications and defenses. If someone attacks collective energy collectors, the whole system loses power. Nick stepped forward. Each species becomes stronger by making the others stronger. Each species becomes safer by making the... Back on the Endeavor, Jake called a meeting with his team. They sat around a table in the ship's conference room. The lights were dim, and the room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. "All right, everyone," Jake said. "We have learned why this war started, and why it cannot end using normal peace talks. Now we need to think like humans, not like other galactic species." Nick looked confused. "What do you mean, Captain? How do humans think differently?" Jake stood up and walked to the big window that showed the stars. "Nick, what do you know about human history?" "Well, we had many wars. We fought each other for thousands of years over land, resources, and ideas." "That is right," Jake said. "But what happened after those wars? Did the winners kill all the losers? Did the fighting go on forever?" Amy understood where Jake was going. "No, Captain. Eventually, the fighting stopped. Former enemies became allies. Countries that fought terrible wars later became friends and trading partners." Sam added, "Like Germany and France, or America and Japan. They fought devastating wars, but later became close allies." Jake nodded. "Exactly. Humans learned something that these alien species seem to have missed. We learned that working together, even with former enemies, often makes everyone stronger and safer." Nick still looked doubtful. "But Captain, those wars ended because one side won, or both sides got too tired to keep fighting. In the Kepler 442 conflict, none of the species can afford to lose or give up." "That is the key, Nick," Jake said with excitement. "We are thinking about this wrong. We keep assuming that someone has to lose for someone else to win. But what if everyone could win?" Amy pulled out her research files. "Captain, I spent the last 3 weeks studying these species. Each one needs something different from Kepler 442. The Zephyrians need planets for their young. The Vorthix need crystal caverns for their religion. And the Nebula Collective needs the star's radiation for their intelligence." "So they do not actually want the same things," Sam said slowly. "Exactly," Jake said. "They think they are fighting over the same prize, but they really need different parts of that prize." Jake called up a computer display showing the Kepler 442 star system. It showed a bright star surrounded by many planets, moons, and asteroid belts. "Look at this system," Jake said. "It has 7 planets, dozens of moons, asteroid belts, and one very special star. What if instead of fighting over who controls everything, each species got the parts they actually need?" Amy looked at the display with growing excitement. "The Zephyrians need high-gravity worlds for their larvae. Planets 1 and 2 are perfect for that. The Vorthix need crystal formations, which grow best in the asteroid belts and on Planet 7. The Nebula Collective just needs access to the star's radiation." Nick was starting to understand. So theoretically, each species could get what they need without taking away what the others need. "But there is still a big problem," Sam said. "These species have been enemies for 20 years. They will never trust each other enough to share territory." Jake smiled. "That is where human experience becomes useful. On Earth, we learned that trust does not come first. Mutual benefit comes first, and trust grows from that." Amy leaned forward. "What do you mean, Captain?" "Think about it," Jake said. "Why do these species keep fighting? Because they are afraid. The Zephyrians are afraid their species will die out. The Vorthics are afraid their ancestors will be dishonored. The Nebula Collective is afraid they will lose their intelligence. Fear makes them see enemies everywhere. Nick nodded slowly. So if we can show them that working together makes them safer and stronger than fighting alone, then their fear becomes a reason to cooperate instead of a reason to fight. Jake finished. Sam pulled up more information about the star system. Captain, there is something else I noticed. The Kepler 442 system is on the edge of the Crimson Sector, near space controlled by pirates and raiders. All three species have been losing ships and resources to attacks while they fight each other. Amy's eyes lit up. So while they waste their military power fighting each other, they are all vulnerable to outside threats. Jake felt pieces of a plan forming in his mind. What if we could show them that their individual strengths could solve their common problems? Explain that, Captain, Nick said. Jake pointed to the display. The Zephyrians are natural warriors with powerful military technology. The Vorthics have advanced crystal technology that could improve defenses and communications. The Nebula Collective has intelligence and information networks that could predict and prevent attacks. Together, they would be almost impossible to defeat, Sam said with understanding. But apart, they are vulnerable to every pirate and raider. In the sector, Amy added. Jake sat back down at the table. There is something else. Something that other galactic species might not understand, but humans do. What is that? Nick asked. Competition can make everyone stronger, but only if it does not become destructive. On Earth, countries compete with each other in trade, sports, science, and technology. But they also cooperate when they face common threats like natural disasters or diseases. Amy was taking notes as fast as she could write. So instead of competing for control of Kepler 442, they could compete to see who contributes most to protecting and developing it. The Zephyrians could compete to be the best guardians of the system, Sam added. The Vorthics could compete to create the most beautiful crystal structures. The Nebula Collective could compete to make the most efficient use of the star's energy. Nick was getting excited now. And their competition would make the entire system stronger instead of tearing it apart. Jake stood up again. But we still have the biggest problem of all. How do we convince three species that have been killing each other for 20 years to suddenly start working together? Amy looked thoughtful. Captain, what made humans finally learn to cooperate with their enemies? Jake thought about this. Usually, it was when they faced a threat that was bigger than their individual conflicts. When humans had to choose between working together or dying separately, they usually chose to work together. Like when different countries worked together to fight diseases or natural disasters, Sam said. Or when former enemies had to cooperate. In space missions, because space is too dangerous for any one country to explore alone. Nick added. Jake felt the final piece of the plan click into place. That is it. We do not try to convince them to trust each other. We show them that the alternative to cooperation is disaster for everyone. Amy looked up from her notes. How do we do that, Captain? Jake smiled, but it was not a happy smile. We tell them the truth. We show them exactly what will happen if this war continues for another 20 years. And then we show them what could happen if they work together. Nick frowned. Captain, other diplomats have probably tried that approach. Yes, but other diplomats. We're not Deathworlders, Jake said. Other species think about peace and war differently than humans do. They see peace as the absence of conflict. Humans know that real peace is not just the absence of war. Real peace is when different groups find ways to live together that make everyone safer and stronger. Sam was looking at the star map again. Captain, there is one more thing. If this plan works, it will not just end the war in Kepler 442. It could change how the entire galaxy thinks about conflict resolution. Jake nodded. That is true. But first, We have to convince 3 alien species to try something that their best minds have decided is impossible. Amy closed her files and looked at Jake. So what is our next step, Captain? Jake looked out at the stars one more time. Tomorrow, we are going to do something that might shock those aliens. We are going to tell them the truth about what makes humans different. We are going to explain why Deathworlders might understand peace better than anyone else in the galaxy. The team spent the rest of the night preparing their presentation. They knew they had only one chance to change the minds of beings whose species had been fighting longer than humans had been traveling in space. But for the first time since arriving at Harmony Point, Jake felt confident. Humans had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that should have ended their species. Maybe that experience was exactly what the galaxy needed now. The journey to Harmony Point took 3 weeks. During this time, Amy Foster worked day and night studying the 3 alien species. She read every report, watched every video, and listened to every recording that Earth had about the Zephyrians. Vorthix and Nebula Collective. Jake found her in the ship's library late one night. She was surrounded by papers and computer screens showing strange alien writing and pictures. Amy, you need to sleep, Jake said. You have been working for 18 hours straight. Amy looked up with tired eyes. Captain, I think I am starting to understand why this war cannot end. These 3 species are not just fighting over land or resources. They are fighting for their very existence, but in ways that are hard to explain. Jake sat down next to her. Tell me what you found. Amy picked up a tablet showing a picture of a Zephyrian. It looked like a giant ant with 6 arms and shiny black skin. The Zephyrians are a hive mind species. They think and act as one group, like bees or ants on Earth. But their biology makes it impossible for them to retreat or give up once they commit to something. If they back down from Kepler 442, their entire civilization could collapse. She switched to another picture, showing a tall, crystal creature that looked like it was made of colored glass. The Vorthix are different. They value honor above everything else. Their whole culture is built on never abandoning what they consider sacred. They have claimed Kepler 442 as a holy place where their ancestors must be honored. Giving it up would destroy their identity. The final picture showed a cloud of glowing gas in the shape of a person. The Nebula Collective is the strangest of all. They are not solid beings like us. They exist as thinking gas clouds that share consciousness. They have put almost all of their mental energy into claiming Kepler 442. If they lose it, they will actually become less intelligent as a species. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. So each species really does need this star system to survive. No wonder the war has lasted so long. Amy nodded. Previous peace talks failed because other species tried to get them to compromise. But you cannot compromise when compromise means death or the end of your civilization. The next morning, the Endeavour arrived at Harmony Point. The space station was huge, bigger than any human city. It was built like a giant wheel spinning slowly in space. Ships from many different species were docked around it like metal flowers. On a silver stem, Jake took a small team with him to the station. Besides Amy, he brought Nick Davis and Sam Parker, the ship's language expert. Sam was a young woman with red hair who could speak 15 different alien languages. The inside of Harmony Point was amazing. The halls were wide and tall, built to accommodate species of all sizes. Jake saw aliens he had never imagined. Some walked on 4 legs, others floated in the air. Some were tiny like insects, others were as big as elephants. A robot guide led them to a large meeting room. Inside, 3 very different beings waited for them. Jake felt nervous as he walked toward them. These were the representatives of species. that had been killing each other for 20 years. The first alien was Hive Queen Zakth of the Zephyrians. She was 8 feet tall, with black shiny skin and 6 arms that moved constantly. Her large eyes looked at Jake without blinking. When she spoke, it sounded like clicking and buzzing, but Jake's translator device turned it into words he could understand. "Humans," she said in a voice that sounded like many people talking at once. "We have heard you are warriors from a death world. We hope you understand what it means to fight for survival." The second alien was Crystal Singer Vorthik Prime Quell. He looked like a tall man made of blue and green crystal. When he moved, his body made beautiful musical sounds. Light seemed to dance inside him like trapped rainbows. "Greetings, beings of flesh," he said in a voice like wind chimes. "We have been told that your species knows honor and sacrifice. Perhaps you can comprehend what cannot be surrendered." The third alien was Distributed Node Alpha 7 of the Nebula Collective. It was a cloud of silver gas contained inside a special suit that looked like a glass bubble. The gas swirled and changed colors as it spoke. "Human entities," it said in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Our calculations suggest your species possesses unique problem-solving capabilities derived from hostile environmental pressures. We are curious to observe your methodology." Jake looked at his team, then back at the 3 aliens. "We are here to listen and learn. Please tell us why this war started and why it cannot end." Hive Queen Zagh's arms moved faster. "The Kepler 442 system contains planets perfect for our larvae. Without proper development worlds, our young cannot mature. Our species will die out in 50 years if we do not claim these worlds." Crystal Singer Quell's body rang like a bell. "Kepler 442 holds the crystal caverns of our ancestors. For 10,000 years, our people have sworn to protect this sacred space. To abandon, it would shatter our souls and leave us as empty as broken glass." Distributed Node Alpha 7's gas swirled in angry patterns. The star Kepler 442 produces radiation frequencies that enhance our collective consciousness by 847%. Losing access to this energy source would reduce our species' intelligence to primitive levels. We would become little more than mindless gas. Amy leaned forward. "So each of you needs this system for your species to survive and remain who you are." All 3 aliens made sounds of agreement, though they sounded very different from each other. Sam. Parker spoke for the first time. "Have you considered sharing the system?" The reaction was immediate. Hive Queen Zagh's clicking became angry and loud. Crystal Singer Quell's music turned harsh and sharp. Distributed Node Alpha 7's gas turned dark red. "Impossible," they all said at the same time, though in their own languages. "Zephyrians do not share territory with enemies," the Hive Queen said. "Vorthik honor cannot be divided among the unworthy," the Crystal Singer added. "Probability of successful resource sharing with hostile entities approaches 0. The Distributed Node stated. Jake felt the weight of the problem. Each species had good reasons for their position. Each truly needed what the others also needed. And none of them could imagine working with their enemies. But something about their answers bothered Jake. These aliens were thinking like the problem had only one solution. On Earth, humans had learned that the biggest problems usually had more than one answer. You just had to be creative enough to find them. "Thank you for explaining your positions," Jake said. "We would like some time to think about what you have told us. Can we meet again tomorrow?" The 3 aliens agreed and left the meeting room. Jake watched them go, each one so different from the others. The Zephyrian marched like a soldier, the Vorthik flowed like music, and the Nebula Collective drifted like smoke. "Well," Nick said after they were alone, "now we know why this war cannot end. Each species really will die or lose everything if they give up Kepler 442. Amy was already taking notes. But Captain, did you notice something? They each need different things from that star system. Maybe the problem is not that they want the same thing. Maybe the problem is that they think they cannot have what they need if the others get what they need. Jake smiled. That is exactly what I was thinking, Amy. On Earth, we call that zero-sum thinking. It means believing that if someone else wins, you must lose. Sam looked excited. So if we can show them that they can all get what they need without stopping the others from getting what they need, ... then maybe we can end a 20-year war, Jake finished. But first, we need to understand exactly what each species needs and why they think they cannot share. As they walked back to their ship, Jake felt hope for the first time since arriving at Harmony Point. The three alien species thought their problem was impossible to solve. But humans had faced impossible problems before. Sometimes the answer was not to fight harder, but to think differently. Captain Jake Miller stood on the bridge of the human ship Endeavour. He watched the stars through the big front window. The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. Jake had been a space captain for 10 years, but he still loved looking at the endless black space filled with bright stars. The ship's computer made a beeping sound. A message was coming in from Earth. Jake walked over to the communication desk where Amy Foster sat. She was the ship's doctor who studied alien life forms. Her job was to understand how different species thought and acted. Captain, we have a message from Admiral Lisa Barnes, Amy said. She pressed a button, and a blue light appeared above the desk. The light formed into the shape of Admiral Barnes. She was an older woman with gray hair and serious eyes. Captain Miller, the Admiral said, I have news that will surprise you. The Galactic Council has asked Earth to help with a big problem. There is a war in the Crimson Sector that has been going on for 20 years. 3 different alien species are fighting over a star system called Kepler 442. Jake felt confused. Earth was still new to the galaxy. Most alien species thought humans were primitive and violent. They called humans Deathworlders because Earth was such a dangerous planet compared to other worlds. Why do they want our help? Jake asked Admiral. Barnes smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Because all 3 species are asking for the same thing. They want humans to help them make peace. They think we are neutral because we are not involved in their war. Amy leaned forward in her chair. Admiral, what species are fighting? The Zephyrians, the Vorthic Empire, and the Nebula Collective, Admiral Barnes replied. Each group has been trying to take control of Kepler 442 for 2 decades. Millions have died. The space around that star system is full of broken ships and dead worlds. Jake knew about these species from his training. The Zephyrians looked like giant insects with hard shells and many arms. They lived in groups called hives and followed their queens without question. The Vorthics were made of living crystal that could sing and make beautiful music. The Nebula Collective was not solid at all. They were clouds of gas that could think and talk. Captain, Admiral Barnes continued, I need you to take your ship to the Crimson Sector. There is a space station called Harmony Point where the peace talks will happen. You will represent Earth and try to help these species stop fighting. Amy looked worried. Admiral, why do they think humans can help? We are known for being violent. Our planet is full of dangerous animals, bad weather, and natural disasters. Other species think we are too aggressive to make peace. Admiral Barnes was quiet for a moment. Maybe that is exactly why we can help them. These 3 species have been fighting for so long that they forgot how to stop. Sometimes it takes someone who understands fighting to understand peace. The Admiral's image started to fade. You have your orders, Captain. Take your best people and head to Harmony Point. The galaxy is watching to see what the Deathworlders Can do. After the message ended, Jake stood quietly. His second-in-command, Nick Davis, walked over to him. Nick was a tall man with dark hair and calm eyes. He had been Jake's friend for many years. "This sounds impossible, Jake," Nick said. "How can we help three species that have been fighting longer than humans have been in space?" Jake looked out at the stars again. "I don't know, Nick, but Earth has seen many wars. Humans have fought each other for thousands of years. Maybe we learned something that these aliens missed." Amy stood up from her chair. "Captain, I have been studying these three species. Each one is very different from the others. The Zephyrians think with one mind like a hive of bees. The Vorthics care about honor more than anything else. The Nebula Collective shares thoughts like a big cloud brain. They are so different that they cannot understand each other." "What do they want from Kepler 442? Jake asked. Amy pulled up information on her computer screen. "It is a rich star system with many planets and valuable materials. But there might be more to it than just resources. Each species says they need that system to survive." Nick shook his head. "If they all need it to survive, how can there be peace? Someone has to give up what they need." Jake thought about this. On Earth, humans had faced many times when survival seemed impossible. Ice ages, volcanoes, diseases, and wars had almost ended humanity many times. But humans always found a way to keep going. "Maybe the problem is not that they all want the same thing," Jake said slowly. "Maybe the problem is that they think only one of them can have it." Amy looked interested. "What do you mean, Captain?" "On Earth, we learned that sometimes the best way to survive is to work together, even with enemies. Maybe these aliens never learned that lesson because their worlds were not as dangerous as Earth." Nick still looked doubtful. "These species have much better technology than us. They have been in space for thousands of years. Their scientists and diplomats are much smarter than humans. If they cannot make peace, what makes us think we can?" Jake smiled for the first time since getting the message. "Because they are smarter. And us, Nick, that might be the problem. Sometimes being too smart makes you miss simple answers." Amy began packing her research materials. "I will study everything we know about these three species. If we are going to help them, we need to understand why they are really fighting." Jake gave orders to his crew to set course for the Crimson Sector. As the Endeavor turned toward its new destination, Jake wondered if humans really could bring peace to a war that had lasted 20 years. Earth was a world where everything tried to kill everything else, yet humans had learned to live together. Maybe that experience would be useful after all. The stars looked the same as always, but Jake felt like everything was about to change. 3 alien species were about to meet the Deathworlders from Earth. Soon they would learn what humans had discovered long ago. Sometimes the most dangerous places teach the most important lessons about survival and peace.